Welcome to this first episode of what I believe to be the most complete front-end development course ever to exist on YouTube. In this course, we will first develop a component library completely from scratch using mainly React and TypeScript. This component library will contain over 100 UI components and over 200 icons component. Throughout this series, we will follow 100% test-driven development, also known as TDD. If you do not know what test-driven development is, it means that we test every single code we write. And mainly it means that we write the test first, and then we fail all those tests, and then we keep writing the code until all the test cases pass. That's the most common strategy for test-driven development, but in case of UI development, that might not be quite possible, because when we are developing UI, we first develop the UI and then we write the tests in order to test those UI components. But throughout this series, there will be some plain JavaScript functions we'll be writing, in which case we will be able to follow 100% test-driven development. That is, we will write the test first for those JavaScript functions, and then we will write the code in order to test all those functions. So the end product, when we are following test-driven development, the end product will have been intensively tested. And anybody using this component library do not need to worry about whether the component will fail, because this component, all the components we'll be building will have been intensively tested, and there is no point of failure. And the reason that we want to build something like this, like building a component library when there is already tons of other alternatives out there, the main reason is if we have our own component library, and let's say that if I want to work with a client and then they want to get their websites or apps done, then it'll be a lot easier because I already have a component library that is developed. It has a lot of styling to it, a lot of variations to it, and all I have to do is just install the component library in the client's website and maybe change some styles, and everything will look very distinct, and the development time is also a lot faster because I do not have to worry about developing components for each of the projects that I work on. And the next thing we'll be doing in this series is, once the component library is built, we will deploy that component library to npm registry. So once we do that, we will build out a documentation website for that component library. And as you can see on the screen here, I have a documentation website for the component library that we'll be building. And for this demo purpose, I have jammed all or most of the components in a single web page, but this is not what we'll be doing in an actual documentation website. But just for the demo purpose, I wanted to show you some of the components that we'll be building. And as you can see on the screen here, there are tons and tons of components that is already ready to be imported and deployed. So it's a production ready React component library that we'll be building, and we'll be building this documentation site, which will contain many pages with an explanation to each of the component, each of the APIs we'll be building. So, but for this demonstration purpose in this video, I will give you a demonstration of what the end product will look like. Let's come to the top left here. This is the thing that you see on the top here. This is an app bar component that we'll be building. So inside this app bar component, we have this button component here with a variant outline. So you can see that there's a nice little outline with a background white, and there's also an icon, a menu icon on this button component. And this menu icon, let me give you a quick insight into this. So you can see that this menu icon is a React component that renders a SVG element. So you can see that this menu icon is an SVG element. So when we want to use this menu icon component, we'll just import this component from modjs/icons or whatever your organization name or package name is, and then we can just directly embed this icon component into the DOM. And when it renders, it will render on the DOM, or it will render on the screen, and that SVG element will be embedded into the DOM as an SVG HTML element. Okay, so that's for the icon. But when I click on this button, you can see that a nice drop down appears, and inside this drop down we have like some accordion component that we will be building. So these are the accordion component. I can close the accordion, and I can close this drop down component either by clicking on that X icon, or I can also close this drop down component by clicking anywhere out on the screen. That drop down is closed. So to the right here, you can see that there's a search field. So once I click on that search field, a model will pop up. So we'll be building out this model. I can close the model by clicking on this X button. Okay, so the model is closed. I can again open the model by clicking on the search field, and then I can again close the model by clicking anywhere out on the screen. So the model is closed. I can open the model again, and when I click on the search field, now the drop down will appear, which will contain all the search results, and I can start searching for the content. But right now it's not searching anything because I do not have any search algorithms applied to this search field. And in order to close this search results box, I can either click on this X button, or again I can click anywhere out on the screen in order to close that. And same to close the model, I can click that and the model is closed. So that's the custom search field that we'll be building. And you can see that there's also this search icon. The search icon is a React component that we can import, and when we render this search icon, it will be on the DOM as an SVG element, and it also has a class name called search icon, as you can see on the screen. Okay, and same with this another icon, this is a link with a variant outlined, and inside that link we have this GitHub icon. So when I click on this, it will take me to a GitHub repository ideally, but right now it's not going to do anything. And also, as you can see, that when I hover over this button, we have a tooltip component. So right now when I hover over that GitHub icon, or this entire button, it will give us a nice tooltip saying GitHub repository. If I hover over the next button, it will again display a tooltip component that says toggle settings drawer. And when I click on that settings button, a nice little drawer will pop up, and this is a drawer component that we'll be building. And also I can switch between light theme and dark theme, and we will implement this theming also in React. So once I click on that light theme, currently I am in light theme, so that's not going to do anything, but I can again switch to dark theme, and everything will be switched to dark theme. And even if I refresh the page, you can see that the dark theme is still being persisted, because the theme object that we'll be developing, we will store that theme object in local storage. So if I come to local storage, you can see that there is this theme object with a type of dark that is being saved to local storage. So that's why when I refresh the page, the theme will be persisted. Okay, so that's for the theme. And again, you can see that in dark theme, the text color is changed, everything is changed, even the tooltip color is changed. So that's for the theme. And on the next here, we have now the link with a variant field, and inside that link we have again a mail icon, and this is also a React component that renders an SVG element, and we will write all these icon components completely from scratch also. Okay, so that's for the app bar, and you can see that everything in this web page is completely responsive. So if I go to responsive, when viewing this web page on a mobile device or on a small device, you can see that everything is responsive. And I can scroll down, you'll see that everything is super responsive. Okay, and we'll come to this other component later, but once I click on that, a drawer will pop up, everything is responsive, there is no horizontal scrolling anywhere, besides for this table component that will be coming later in the video when I talk about table component. Okay, and again the search field, if I click on that, a model pops up, it fits right in the screen. Same with this one, there's this top navigation or a drawer component that pops up on the top. So we also have variants for the drawer, whether to display the drawer on the right, left, top, bottom. Right now it's displaying it slightly to the right. I don't know what's happening, but we will fix that eventually. Okay, so that's for the responsive design. And if I come to screen size larger than 768 pixels, right now it's 820 pixels, I can, again, everything is responsive. The drawer is responsive, there's this drop down that's responsive, this drawer is also responsive. I can switch between light theme. Okay, and also let's say if I refresh the page and this code component, you can see that it's not overflowing out of this div. Everything is responsive. We can scroll horizontally. To the left here, you can see that we will be building some accordion components. So once I click on the title, an accordion will slide down, and then it will open the accordion content component. And inside this accordion, we have all these links with variant transparent. And once I hover over the link, you can see that there's some background color being applied, and also the color, text color is changed. And all these links are within an unordered list component, and inside that there's a list component, and inside that there's a link component. Okay, so that's for the accordion. And the border right before this border here on the right, this is a side navigation component, and this is, again, we want to scroll down. Everything is really responsive. Okay, and once I scroll all the way to the top, the entire page is going to scroll. And again, to the right here, this is again a side navigation component where again we have unordered list, and all these links that will link to a specific section in this web page. Okay, so that's for that. Now let's come to this main section. The first thing that you see here is a big title. So this is rendering a h1 tag. So if I inspect that element, it is rendering a h1 tag, and this will be a typography component with a variant h1, and that will apply some typography class to this h1 element. Same thing with the paragraph element. You can see that this paragraph here is a typography component being rendered as body 1, which is a paragraph element. Okay, so that's for that. And there is also this another icon here. So if I hover over that, a tooltip will pop up stating copy to clipboard, and if I click on that, it says copy to clipboard. And once I paste that, you can see that the content is being copied and pasted, just this particular content. Okay, so that's for the typography, and there are tons of other variants. So there is S1, S2, S1 to S6, there's paragraph small. There are tons of other variants to typography component we'll be writing. And you can see that there is this code editor. We will be building this code editor completely from scratch. You can see that this code editor currently has a variant field. There will be different stylings to this. Also, this code editor, we can have an icon, we can have a file name, and there are some buttons on this code editor. So if I hover over this play icon, then a tooltip will appear saying execute code. Once I click on that, the code is being executed, and a stop button or a stop icon is being shown. But right now it's not going to do anything when I run this code, because this code doesn't really do anything besides importing the typography component and declaring some constants. But again, I can click on that button in order to stop the code execution. And there is this link that will point to the GitHub repository where the source code is hosted. And then again, there's this copy component that we'll be writing, and when I click on that copy button, it will say copy to clipboard, and if I want to paste that content there, I can paste it over there, and you can see that everything is being pasted. And also, this code editor is editable, so if I want to copy that and paste it there, you can see that this code editor is also editable. I can write anything that I want here and then run the code and to see if there's any errors. So that's for the code editor. Let me refresh the page so that everything looks nice here. And then coming down here, we will build a slideshow component. You can see that this has a slideshow avatar or slideshow media with a nice little Bob Dylan picture there. And there is a code icon, and then there's the slideshow content, there's the slideshow footer, and there's this slideshow navigation. And in order to navigate this slideshow, I can click on that right arrow button, and that'll take me to slideshow 2. You can see the description 2. That's a slideshow number 2. If I click on that, that's a slideshow number 3. I can go to the previous slideshow number 2, previous slideshow number 1. From slideshow 1, if I want to jump directly to slideshow 3, then I can press that third square button, and that will take me to slideshow 3. And also, when the slideshow component is on number 3, then you can see that the third button is disabled, indicating that we are in third slideshow. If I go to second slideshow, you'll see that the second button will be disabled, indicating that we're on the second slideshow. And there are tons of other slideshows we can add, an infinite number of slideshows depending on how many slideshows that you want to add. Okay, so that's for the slideshow component. And again, this is super responsive. Nothing overflows horizontally on the screen. And this slideshow will also be touchable, so I can touch the slides. I can swipe the slideshow using just fingers on a mobile device. So we will implement this also. Okay, but right now it's not doing that, but we'll fix this later when we actually start writing the code. I don't know why it's not swiping with fingers now, but we will fix that. Okay, so that's for the slideshow component. Look, coming down here, we have a form component that renders some of the form fields. So that's a first name field. So you can see that as soon as I click on that, it will, because first name cannot be blank, and we can set this whether we want a field to be required or not. And if there is nothing on the field, as soon as I click on that, it will show this nice red border with the error text also. So it says please enter a valid name, no trailing white space. And once I actually start writing a name, this will show a green border indicating that the name is correct, but are indicating that the field is satisfied. But if I put a white space in the end, it will again show us an error saying name cannot contain trailing white spaces. And these are the helper functions that we'll be writing. You can modify this however you want when we actually start writing code. So that's that. And in all these text fields, if I click on the white space, it's not allowing white space. Okay, so that's the validation. And if there is an error, so let's say that in this case the first name must contain at least 2 letters. So in this case there's only 1 letter, which is an error. And if I click anywhere out on the screen, this error text will be hidden, but again it will indicate that there is some error in this form field with this red border, even if I click outside. Okay, but for now let's satisfy the requirement there. And same with email field, we will do email validation completely from scratch. You can see that when the email is blank, a red border will pop up. And Prashant at example.c, that's still not a valid email because the top level domain must be at least 2 letters. So if I do .co, that's a valid email. If I just remove the username part from the email, that's not a valid email. Okay, and if I remove the domain from the email, that's also not a valid email. So we'll be doing this email validation completely from scratch. And again, just like with the name field, it is an error. The error text is shown. If I click outside, this red border will still be there, indicating that there is an error. And once I click on that, the error text will pop up. Same thing with phone number. Okay, so in this case, I want the phone number to be 10-digit phone number, but when we are writing the code, if you want the phone number to be something different, you are always free to do that, and that will be super easy. It's nothing too complicated. But for the phone number, there will be some formatting applied to the phone number. So currently the phone number is blank. It is saying please enter a valid 10-digit phone number. If I click outside, there's no error. The phone number field is not on focus, so that's why it doesn't show any error. But as soon as I type something, maybe a 1 digit, and click outside, you can see that the red border is being shown, indicating there's an error. And this phone number is formatted nicely. So for 10-digit phone number, 1 2 3 4, so as soon as I type in 4 numbers there, the first 3 numbers are wrapped inside a parenthesis. There's a white space, and 5 6. And as soon as I type the 7th number, you can see that there's a hyphen added, 890. So that's a valid phone number. And if I want to type anything else, it's not allowed because the max length is set to 10-digit for the phone number. Okay, and so that's a valid phone number. If I again remove one of the numbers in the end, it will say please enter a valid 10-digit phone number, showing that red border. It's also showing the error text. Okay, and once I click outside, indicating there is still an error, I can fix that. That's a valid 10-digit phone number. And for valid URL, because with the URL it really differs, because different browsers have different max characters that are allowed on URL, but I think Google allows about 2048 characters in the URL. But for the URL field, we'll just do we just specify some characters, minimum characters that are required. Okay, so that's for the URL field. There's nothing too much going on in this URL field. We're just checking if the min length is satisfied. And for this message area, as soon as I click on this, the message area is required. And you can see that as soon as I click on the message area, it will count the number of characters, how many characters are allowed, and how many characters are in the field. Okay, so if I keep typing here, it is counting the characters. So 36 out of 5,000. And this 5,000 characters, when the user using this message area component, they can specify the max length characters to be 10, 20, whatever numbers they want, but this is not fixed at 5,000 always. Okay, so this is really reusable. Everything will be building throughout this series. Every single component will be super reusable, super customizable. That's our main focus. Okay, but for these are all the defaults values. So 5,000 character is the default. If the user does not provide any value for the max length, then it will default to 5,000 character. If the user provides the max length, then the max length will be whatever the user provides. Okay, so in this case it's 5,000, and at least one or maybe one character is required. You can see that everything is green. There's a green border, and there's also an indication that the min length is satisfied. Okay, so that's for the message area or a text area component. Okay, so coming down here, we also have some fields for mainly for the authentication, such as email, password. You can see that there's a new password, and as soon as I click on this new password field, you'll see the description for the password, the requirements for the password. So password must be between 8 and 32 characters. So let's type in, let's first do this at least one digit. So if I type in 1 there, and we can also toggle the password. Let's set the visibility to true. And so if I click 1, you see that a digit is satisfied. If I delete that one, you'll see that the digit is not satisfied. So click on that, press that 1, and at least one uppercase. Let's type in uppercase A. You'll see that the uppercase is satisfied. Lowercase, let's type in lowercase a. Lowercase is satisfied. Let's type in exclamation. Exclamation is satisfied. And between 8 and 32 characters, so let's type in at least 8 characters. Now the new password is, this is a valid new password. And there are tons of other requirements that we can add. But for now, I think this is quite enough for the password. And same thing with confirm password. So let's say that if the user sets the password to testing1234 exclamation, this confirm password field will check if the confirm password field or the value matches the new password value. So in this case, the new password is testing1234 exclamation. The confirm password must be 1234 exclamation. And as soon as the confirm password matches the new password on the top, it will show a green border. Everything's green, indicating that it's a success or it's valid. Okay, but if I remove that exclamation, now confirm password does not match the new password. So that's why we will display an error text saying that password does not match. And for this, let's fix that there. And for this your password, so this can be used for logging in. These above two fields can be used to create an account. This password field can be used when logging in. So let's say that testing1234 exclamation, 1234 exclamation, that's a valid password because all the requirements have been met. But we will but in a real application, you would ideally want to check if the user credentials are valid or not. So this is just for the UI purpose. And there's this field button with a background of blue, and then all these colors here, every single color, all the mainly blue colors, dark, some black colors, and this is a maybe darker gray color. This color, because we will implement theme, so the users are free to provide their own theme. Okay, so as I said, everything will be building throughout the series. Every single component, every single functionality will be super customizable. The user using this component library that we'll be building is not restricted to certain functionalities, but they are always free to extend the functionality and modify however they want. Okay, so there's this button with this login or this login icon here. This is again a React component that renders an SVG element in the screen, and that will embed an SVG element in the DOM as an HTML SVG element. And you can see that there's also this animated loading icon. Ideally, when after clicking this button, we want to display this loading icon depending on if it's making an API call, and until the API call is satisfied, we want to display this loading icon. Okay, so that's for the forms and some fields and authentication, and there are some other fields that we'll be writing to. I can't remember exactly on top of my head right now, but there are tons of other components also that's not in this web page. So this was just for the demo purpose, so that I just wanted to see if this is something that you're interested in. So, and there's another card component here. You can see that there's a card with a variant field, and the notched is set to true. The props notched. When the notched is set to true, it'll just cut this corner on the border there. So that's notched. This is a variant field, a card component, and inside this card component, there are a few other components. So this card title here, this is a card header component. So if I inspect the element here, you can see that this is a card header component. So this main div, that's a card header, and this div here, that's a card meta component. So that's the metadata for the card. And this is a card content component. Same here, card content. Okay, so there are a few components within the card component, and this is a card media component that renders this nice little Bob Dylan smiling picture from when he was young. And there's this card footer. We can put anything in the footer, but I put a button here. The users using our library are free to, again, customize however they want. And these are some of the icons component we'll be building from scratch as a React component. So if I inspect the page here, so if I do that or hover over that or inspect that AWS icon, you can see that it's an SVG element that renders an AWS icon. And there's this Google Cloud icon. So all of these are SVG elements that we will write as a React component. For JavaScript, you can see that there's an SVG element with a class JavaScript icon. Okay, so these are all the icons component we'll be building, and there are over 200 icons component we'll be building, but just for the demo purpose, I have rendered maybe 15 or 20 components here. Okay, and the next thing is we have this table component. This table is really responsive, so I think I showed that earlier, but again, on smaller device, you can see that because the table overflows, you can see that there's horizontal scrolling just for the table, and everything else out on the screen is not scrollable. Only the table is scrollable. Okay, so that's for the table component. Inside the table, we, again, just like with the card content or the card component or the slideshow component, and there's this table header, there's this table body, table row, and there are some peels. So I call this a peels. So all these ones. So this is also a peel component, and that will just render a peel with some text. Okay, so that's for the table component. Again, when I hover over it, you'll see that the background is changed. And coming down to the bottom here, there are some snack bar components. So these are the two, success snack bar and error snack bar. Ideally, you would want to show the snack bar when certain action is taken on a site, but just for the demo purpose, I just wanted to show you what this snack bar will be like. And I can close this snack bar by clicking on this X button. Or for this snack bar, we can also set the visibility timeout. So if I go to the code here, in snack bar, currently the visibility timeout is set to this infinite number. So I can set the visibility timeout to 1000 seconds. And as soon as I save that, you'll see that the snack bar only appears on the screen for 1 or 1000 milliseconds or 1 second. Okay. And again, the visible is set to true for the demonstration purpose, but ideally you would want to supply some value here in the visible in the visible property. You'd want to check some condition. If the API call has been satisfied or if the form has been submitted, then you write some condition here on this visibility property. Okay, so that's for the snack bar. And coming down here, this is the footer component that renders a typographic component with variant small, and it says made with love by fullstackpro.io. Okay, so that's for the demonstration. And again, this is not a complete demonstration. I will probably make a nice final demo once we actually once we are at the end of this series, because I still have to work on the documentation side. I have not worked on it. It's not complete, but the entire component library is complete. So I wanted to make videos on every single components that we'll be developing. So these are all the components that we'll be developing: accordion content, title, app bar mobile, article, all these components that we will be developing throughout this series. And you can see that there are probably over 100 components we'll be developing. There are some missing ones here. Okay, so the other thing is there are a lot of things that are being rendered on this web page. As you can see, there are a lot of components. Okay, and there are a lot of functionalities. Even just for this fields here, there are tons of code that we will be writing in the component library that will be published to npm. But the end user using those component library, if I come to VS Code, you see that that entire web page, every single component in this web page here, how many lines of code did we write in order to render all that? And there are some errors here. Don't worry about this. We'll fix this when we are actually developing the documentation site. But the point here is, in about 600 lines of code, so we only had to write 600 lines of code in order to render every single thing in this web page. So the end user using the component library, the development time is much faster, because they do not have to worry about rewriting these fields or this name fields or the slideshow component or the functionality. They don't have to do that. So in this case of slideshow here, because this is quite a lot, it takes quite a lot of code in order to implement this slideshow component. But you see that the end user using this component library will be building, you'll see that this slideshow, that's all the code. That's the amount of code that is needed in order to display or make the slideshow component work. So in about 312, in about 30 lines of code, or 30 lines of code, this entire slideshow component is working. And same with this, let's say this message, or this let's do this new password field. In order to make that new password field work, so this is a create password field. In just about 3 lines of code, all the functionalities, I didn't mean to do that, all the functionalities of new password is working, because this new password field is a component library that is hosted on npm registry, and the user can just import this create password field, and they don't have to worry about any other functionality. When I say that the component that we'll be building is reusable or extensible, it means that, so let's come to this message area or this text area component. Okay, this is a message area component that renders a text area HTML element. So you can see that the max characters allowed is 5,000 characters. So the end user using this component library can actually specify the max character that they want. So they can specify max length to be set it to maybe 100, or even set it to, let's set it to actually 16, so that we can actually test the error response also. So the max length for this message area is set to 16, and once I refresh the page and click on that, you can see that the max characters allowed is set to 16, and if I type in more than 16 characters, it will not let us type more than 16 characters, okay, because the max length is set to 16 characters. But again, the point here is the component is very much reusable. And same thing with this password also. Right now the password length is set to 8 and 32. We can always change that. Okay, the end user using the component library are free to change the requirements. Okay, so that's for, I think that's all I have for this for the demo purpose. There are some other components that I feel like we are missing, but again, this was just a demo just to show you what we'll be doing throughout the series and if you are interested or not. But again, I will make a final demo once I actually have the complete documentation site ready. So that should be it for the demo. In the next video, we will talk about the entire architecture for this project, for the component library, and for the documentation website. And after that is done, we will start setting up the environment and building this thing out. See ya!